I'm Haitian American, and watching what is happening with Haitian TPS right now, my mother used to run errands with our social security cards on her, not tucked away safely at home on her because ICE was around. And there was this understanding that you might have to prove who you were. As a kid, I did not fully understand the politics. I understood the feeling. Be ready to explain yourself. Be ready to prove you belong. Be ready in case somebody asks questions. And now, years later, I'm watching Haitian families across the country face a completely different situation. But that feeling of uncertainty, unfortunately, I recognize it. And that's why I want to talk about Haitian TPS, not as a immigration attorney, not as somebody telling you what legal decision to make, but as a Haitian American woman who teaches preparedness. Because sometimes preparedness is not about hurricanes. Sometimes it's about what happens when a policy decision changes the options available to your family. What is happening? TPS stands for Temporary Protected Status. It allows eligible people from certain countries experiencing dangerous or extraordinary conditions to remain and work legally in the United States for a limited period. Haiti has had TPS protection because of conditions including natural disasters, political instability, and severe insecurity. The federal government moved to terminate Haiti's TPS designation. Then the courts got involved. Then the Supreme Court ruled in June that courts could not block the administration's decision to end TPS in the way the lower court had. And since then, Haitian families have been watching deadlines move, work authorization dates change, and guidance updates sometimes within days. That alone is a preparedness lesson. When information is changing quickly, you can't rely on the screenshot somebody sent you 3 days ago. You need current information. And more than 300,000 Haitian TPS holders have been caught in this uncertainty with concerns about losing work authorization, immigration protection, family stability, and the ability to remain in the country. This is way bigger than a document. And I think this is where people who are not connected to the Haitian community sometimes miss the human part. A status changes on paper, but the consequences do not stay on paper. That person may have a job, a lease, a car payment, children, a spouse, an elderly parent they care for, medication, a business, a church community, people depending on their income, people depending on them for transportation, people depending on them for childcare. So when somebody says TPS is ending, that can create 20 other questions underneath it. Can I work tomorrow? What happens to my job? What happens to my family? What paperwork do I need? Who takes care of my children if something happened? Who has access to our accounts? Who knows where our documents are? What happens if members of the same household have different immigration statuses? Those are preparedness questions. My childhood memory. And that is what brings me back to my mother. Because I remember those social security cards. I remember them being something we carried because there was a possibility somebody might question us. And there were times. And looking back as an adult, I realized something. My mother was creating an option with the information she had at the time. Was that the perfect preparedness system? No. Today, I would never tell somebody to casually walk around with an original social security card unless a qualified authority specifically tells them they need that document. But what I understand now is the instinct behind it. Be ready. Have proof. Know what you have. Know what you need. Do not wait until the moment of stress to start looking for important information. And that part will always stay with me. So what does preparedness look like now? First, please, when I say please, do not take immigration advice from TikTok comments and do not take immigration advice from me. Your immigration situation is individual, and this legal environment is moving quickly. Talk to a qualified immigration attorney or an accredited immigration legal service organization about your specific case. What I can help you with is the preparedness around the uncertainty. And that is where my 3 C's come in. Control. Control starts with, what do I actually know? Not what did somebody's cousin say? Not what did Facebook say? What is verified? What applies specifically to me? What requires action and what does not? Because fear makes everything feel urgent. Preparedness helps you separate urgency from noise. If you or somebody you love is affected, gather the most current information from USCIS and qualified legal counsel. Write down your questions. Know what documents you currently have. Know which ones expire and when. Do not let panic become your planning process. That is control. Cover. Cover means creating options. And for a family dealing with immigration uncertainty, cover may look completely different from somebody preparing for a hurricane. It might mean knowing where your important documents are, keeping secure copies, knowing who your attorney is, having an emergency contact, having some financial cushion if work is interrupted, having a childcare plan, knowing who could pick up your child if something happens, knowing what medication someone needs, having transportation options, understanding what resources exist in your community. It does not mean assuming the worst is going to happen. It means asking, if something changes, what options would my family need? That is cover. Communication. This might be the most uncomfortable part because families sometimes avoid conversations that scare them. But avoiding the conversation does not remove the possibility. Who in your family knows what is happening? Who has the attorney's information? Who knows where the documents are? Who should be called first? Who can care for the kids? Who has access to necessary information if the person who normally handles everything suddenly cannot? You do not have to sit your family down and make everybody terrified. You can say, things are uncertain right now. Let's make sure everybody knows the plan. That is very different. And to the Haitian families, I want to say this carefully. You do not have to pretend this is not scary. There are Haitian families right now who do not know what their lives will look like next. I'm sorry if I cry in this. Like my parents, some people have built their lives here for years. Some have American-born children. Some work in healthcare, hospitality, and other industries that depend heavily on immigrant workers. Reports from South Florida and elsewhere describe fear over job losses, separation, and immigration enforcement as the protections change. Fear makes sense, but fear and preparation are not the same thing. Fear says, what are we going to do? Preparedness asks, what can we do right now? And that difference matters. I think about that little girl watching her mother carry our social security cards during everyday errands. Back then, I did not have the language for preparedness. I do now. Preparedness is not always a generator. It is not always food storage. It is not always an emergency bag. Sometimes preparedness is knowing your rights, knowing your documents, knowing your people, knowing your options, and having the conversation before the situation gets harder. Control, cover, communication. And if you are Haitian and this is affecting your family right now, I see you. I know there is a lot of uncertainty. Please get qualified legal guidance for your individual situation. And while the legal fight continues, build as much structure around yourself and your family as you can. Because uncertainty is hard enough. You should not have to face it without a plan. I'm Coach B, a Haitian-American birthright citizen, the preparedness coach. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.